This movie needs an abridged version.
There's just a lot going on all the time. She had a great ass.
You're watching it on 1.5.
Man, there's a lot of characters.
They drop the title of this movie
A lot.
Welcome to Yestalgia. I'm Basil.
Drew.
And I'm Amanda.
And featuring our special guest today.
I'm Bill. And the movie today is 1995's Heat.
So you may have noticed we have a special guest, Bill, and he is my husband.
Yay, Bill! Welcome.
Hi.
We'll be talking about his pick, and if everyone is cool with that, I'm going to give a brief synopsis.
Let's hear it.
Master criminal Neil McCauley is trying to control the rogue actions of one of his men while also planning one last big heist before retiring. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Vincent Hanna attempts to track down McCauley as he deals with the chaos within his own personal life. McCauley and Hanna discover a mutual respect even as they try to thwart each other's plan, and that is Heat. So we can talk more about the rest of it, but first let us talk about our experience with the movie Heat.
I've heard of this movie. I've never seen it, never hunted it out, never really cared if I saw it or not. But yeah, it's a movie.
I think Drew said it best. I've known that this movie exists. I've heard of it. It's not one of those movies that's very quotable. It's just like, you know, it exists. Also, like you, Drew, this is not normally the type of movie that I would seek out to watch, nor have I ever really had it going on in the background for whatever reason. So, brand new movie.
Yeah, I'm the same as the two previous respondents. Sorry, that was a weird way to say that. In that I have never seen the movie. I knew of its existence. Particularly, I knew of it because my husband mentioned it a few times as a movie he really liked and wanted me to watch with him. I'm going to say we never got around to it, but I also at one point asked him, do you think it's the kind of movie I'd like? And he basically admitted no. So we have not seen it. And this was his way to get us to see it. Or I don't know. I'll let him answer that kind of thing on his own. Bill.
So I ended up seeing the movie Heat at probably a way too young age, maybe like 10 to 12, because I had an older brother, or I have an older brother. And when I grew up a little more and had the ability to get movies on my own, this was a movie that I had collected and enjoyed watching, I'd say maybe not 10 times, but at least 2 more times. Yeah, you know, one of kids' first action movies holds a special place in their heart, I guess. I subjected you all to it.
And it was 3 hours long, and we still love you.
3.5 with commercials.
Mm-hmm.
Not
yes,
quite.
Because watch this on Pluto, which is the most readily legally available way to watch it, there's a lot of commercials too. So definitely got long with that. So does anyone have anything in particular that they would like to start off talking about this film?
You know what? I'll start.
Okay.
I'm afraid I'm not going to be a huge help to you guys tonight. I will do my best, but I don't want to say it was a slog, okay? Because it wasn't. But it was 3 hours long, and I did some type of way. I was watching it at 1.5 playback speed.
Mm.
So to your point, when me and Basil were watching it, there was a part where we paused to go to the bathroom, and she screamed out, "How can there still be an hour left? How?"
Right.
Yeah.
Also, I had to watch it in chunks, and I've had to do that with other movies before that I was very much looking forward to watching. And I'm not going to lie, I was not looking forward to watching this. But this movie needs an abridged version. It really, really does.
I agree with you on that.
Because there's something good there, right?
So in my notes, I specifically wrote, they're doing too much.
They're doing too much.
Right, they have points to storylines going at one time.
There's too many characters.
And I think that's okay to do, but they have to really connect back at the end. That's not really what happened, right? It was just sort of extraneous information about different characters, which for some of it, yeah, especially I would argue the two main characters, McCauley and Hanna, that their kind of personal lives are part of the story, right? In fact, I'm jumping to the end for 1 second. There's a part where they both have the chance to make the reasonable adult choice and they don't. And that is an important part of the film, I think.
It's an important part of the film because they built to it the whole way through.
Yes. However, there's also a lot of just extra stuff they talk about that we don't need to see. There doesn't need to be quite as many characters as they are. They don't need to
Too many characters.
focus on them as much as they do. There's just a lot going on all the time for no reason because there is this main through line of a plot that's not bad. I will say it's not to my taste, but it's not bad. And I think that with some editing, you could have that movie, right?
It seemed like almost right up until the end, well, at least until about like the 3/4 mark, I felt like there was always somebody else being dragged in
Yeah.
on both sides. So in this movie, you have two sides.
Cops and robbers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got this. Yeah, you've got the cops and you've got the robbers. And we talked about this super briefly before, and it was a joke at the time, but I experienced it as well. Basil said something hilarious to the effect of, I can't tell Al Pacino and Robert De Niro apart. And girl, let me just tell you that here's how me and my weak ass brain works. First scene, you see Robert De Niro walk into a
Yes.
hospital dressed as an
Yes.
ambulance driver. Okay, and he gets into an ambulance.
Off of the train tracks.
Yeah, and they knock over a fucking Loomis car, okay? And they're very mean about it.
Armored car.
Sorry, I
Well,
branded
it all kind of goes wrong because of one person, I'll say.
Didn't get any of that. I got very, very little nuance from this movie. I basically like bullet points. And I watched it. I promise you guys I watched it. But even engaged as I was with it, it was so long and there were so many characters and these two men, okay, they feel the same, right?
I went in saying, what is Basil talking about? Before seeing the movie, nowadays, they look quite a bit different to me. But when I started watching the movie, like, oh, never mind, she's right.
Yeah, they share each other's free.
If you were to guess how far apart they are age-wise, I bet you'd be surprised.
They're not.
Tell us. I have to know.
Right now, I think they're 81 and 84.
I thought it was 80.
Oh, well,
and
that's not a
84,
big
but
age gap, but I'm shocked that they
No.
are that. Well, I'm not shocked.
I'll say in this movie, this was helped me tell them apart in a lot of ways because I was seeing them so much. So I started noticing more of the differences in their faces to be able to kind of make that, particularly because Pacino in this movie, his cheeks are kind of hollow. He like looks real thin in the face comparatively. And that was like my big, like, that's that one.
Tan, and De Niro's got the cheek mole thing.
Yeah.
De Niro looks more hinged than Pacino in this movie. Pacino looks like he's about to twist the fuck off at any moment,
Well, some of that's the acting.
which is crazy because he's supposed to be the quote unquote good guy, right? And I say quote
Yeah.
unquote because there's reason to sort of root for the robber.
Mm-hmm.
And he kind of looks like more gentle. He looks like he's seen less cocaine.
So some of the reason I found out afterwards, because I was also making comments about how Al Pacino was acting like Nick Cage in this movie.
Forgot about that.
Crazy outbursts out of nowhere, right?
You have a nice
Like,
ass.
She had a great ass. Like, what the fuck was that? That was also improv, by the way.
That was straight up Nicolas Cage, that part.
Yeah, right? And he did that like a couple of times, but I guess during some of the early versions of the script, his character had a cocaine habit. And I think there was some threads on there that he was kind of keeping. Maybe again, from what I read, it didn't sound like any of that stuff was filmed, that by the time they got to filming, it was gone, but it
Yeah.
was still this portion of the character that he had internalized. In fact, when Billy and I were watching it, I kept complaining about it being like, why do we all praise this actor? He's acting like a crazy person for no reason.
I'm sorry, Basil. I liked
Yeah.
it.
It too.
I really
hated
liked it. And I didn't even know that thing that you just said. And I was like, this dude is. I almost thought I was like, was he the human being actor coked out on this? And then I was like, okay, well, you're watching it on 1.5. So maybe.
Which is a wild thing that I do not understand.
You get
Audiobook,
used
I
to
can
it.
see that. But a movie?
There's been a couple.
So at 1.5 speed, he is shouting out his lines. They must sound even more crazy with that little high pitchedness.
There's no high pitch. It's the same pitch. He's just talking like this.
Yes.
Even the music sounded weird too throughout the whole film. And I was like, is that really because the music is weird, or is it because I've chosen to cheat real dirty?
It's a little weird.
Yeah.
It's weird, right?
I
Yeah.
thought the music was very fitting for a 90s movie. It reminded me
Fair.
of the other big movies of like the 90s, early 2000s. The one like Traffic, how it just always has this instrumental, deep music to transition scenes. And it's not like a pop from the radio. It's like violins and concertos and all sorts of words I don't know, just playing instruments in the background to elicit emotions. And it just fits right in with like every other movie from the 90s is what I felt.
Well, speaking of classical music, another thing I thought of to tell De Niro from Pacino is De Niro speaks in more of a legato, whereas Pacino speaks in more of a staccato.
Ah,
Huh.
I don't
Okay.
actually know what those words mean, if I'm being totally honest. So.
Legato means to speak all the words in order, very few pauses. And staccato means that.
Yeah,
No,
it's like a
verse. Right.
almost like firing off a machine gun sort of way of delivery. Oh my God, you are so right. There were a lot of good things about this movie. I just have to really dig them out. And they also were kind of buried under so many characters and so many and thens.
And so many plot points going on.
So many
like,
plot points.
I mean, if we want to flip the script on that, Amanda, I would say I wrote this in a note here. The movie does a good job of setting up the next scene. Everything makes sense and transitions into the next scene successfully.
It doesn't. Except when it doesn't.
Yep. Then it just jumps over to Dennis Haysbert's
Right.
character on a
Right.
completely different storyline.
Like, where'd that come from?
I'm getting straight.
Yeah.
Dennis Haysbert, I just cannot see as not President Palmer from 24. But that's the actor's
I
name,
know.
Dennis Haysbert.
the whole time I kept being like, it's President Palmer.
In good hands.
Did President Palmer play in this movie?
He was the African American man that comes out of prison and starts working in a kitchen and gets really put down by the corruptness of the support structure and system for ex-cons.
Yeah.
When he slugged that smarmy ass little manager into the prep table and was like, fuck
Mhm.
you, I was like, yeah.
He really only pushed him, but yeah.
Basil had completely forgotten at one moment why the job was such a shitty place, and I had to remind her.
Oh, yeah. Well, because I'm not going to lie, I was a little zoned out in that part of the
Oh,
yeah.
movie. It was a lot
No.
of setup at the time, and I kind of zoned out and was like, man, there's a lot of characters. and then later I was like, wait, what's going on?
I was going to say, there is a lot of characters, but there's a very different level of detail they give to the characters' backstories. They spend a lot of time with Robert De Niro and showing that he just meets a woman and falls in love. And that's his entire character's side story.
I have a beef with that.
Yep, I do too. But at the same time, they give that so much screen time. Tom Sizemore, who's one of Robert De Niro's crew, they give him a scene at a table with his wife and kids and 5 lines of dialogue later about how, hey man, if you want to go straight, you got bonds set up, you got your money cleaned, you got a family, you can get out of here. And he's just like, nah, man, I live for the game.
The character's name was Michael Chirito.
Michael Chirito. So they give him so little time for his whole backstory, but he's got the whole family already set up.
The thing is, because we're seeing just so much of everyone, like too much of everyone.
Except Danny Trejo.
I know. Which, to be honest, we get so much of mostly the white people. But so I think that if you cut down some of it, right, and put more importance on certain things, because I think you could do an interesting ensemble thing with this, but they didn't put the right emphasis, I think, on certain things either because it's like a lot of things are happening. Does that make sense?
Yes. Here's something that they did not put for me. And if I'm wrong and I missed something, please let me know. Here's a syllable that they did not put enough emphasis on. Robert De Niro, his whole philosophy, and he even goes to a coffee shop with Al Pacino, and in my head, they kissed and kissed and kissed all night. But in reality, what they were doing was they were talking about what drives you, dog. What is at your core? It was the long and the short of it. And Robert De Niro says, when I see heat coming around the corner, whatever I'm with at that time has to be something that I can just break clean away. He has to have the cat collar, okay? Robert De Niro has to have a safety approved breakaway cat collar from every single thing that he chooses to have in his life. So we've already seen him making out with this chick,
Edie,
who kind of seems like a ding dong. She seemed like a ding dong to me.
Library ding dong.
Okay, hold on. I'm going to tell you, she probably is playing a character and the actresses are probably younger than you thought. At least that was the case for me. Because Billy near the end said, I'm surprised you didn't complain about the age gap between De Niro's character, Macaulay, and Edie. And I was like, well, I don't have problems with age gaps once you're basically in your 30s.
Yeah.
Because you're like really full on adult. So I'm thinking this girl's in her 30s, right? With a man who's in his 50s. That's not crazy to me. Well, it's unfortunately a thing in Hollywood that the woman is always younger, regardless. But I was like, not a big deal. Then I looked up the actress and she was like in her 20s when she was filming this. And I remembered some stuff she said that made me think this character is supposed to be maybe mid 20s, actually.
Well, yeah, she was starting out on her life. She had moved there for her career and so on and so forth. And to me, I'm sorry, I don't have a problem with it. But she did look like Pippi motherfucking Longstocking macking on Gandalf the Grey. So my problem was not that. It was not that at all. The culmination of this whole movie, the title of this movie is The Heat. Is it The Heat or is it just Heat?
It's Heat.
The Heat is a late 2000s movie with Melissa McCarthy and Sandra Bullock.
Oh my God.
We learn.
You got to leave out the.
God damn it.
You could have watched the wrong movie.
They drop the title of this movie in this cafe.
Yeah, a lot.
Yowie kissing scene.
Yeah, that's my favorite thing in movies, when they say the name of the movie.
Say the thing.
Me too.
Yeah, we kept the whole time going, they said the name of the movie. They said the name of the movie.
Yeah, and it's a big deal. It's at the heart of the movie.
I wrote it down, Amanda, so I'll read it to you. What's at the heart of the movie is,
Go ahead.
don't let yourself get attached to anything you are not willing to walk out on in 30 seconds flat if you feel the heat around the corner.
Yes.
And he says that like 4 times throughout the movie.
Oh, yeah. And he lived by it.
And he
He
lived
lived
by
by
it.
it.
Well, hold on. I had a question about that, and that's in the end, but I can wait.
Go to the end because I was about to go to
Jump
the end.
around, just like the movie.
Okay. So near the end, he basically says to Edie, who I think the thing about her is she is supposed to be kind of young and maybe a little naive because she didn't see any signs, you know what I mean? But he says to her, oh, you know, I've been trying to keep myself alive and now I'm like, there hasn't been any real reason and now there is, which means her. He's basically saying, you are the reason to actually do anything, to leave because, you know, we will be together, right? But then in the end, he leaves her. He does that thing that he said, you don't get attached to something you can't get rid of in 30 seconds, right? Do you think when he said that to her, was he lying to her exclusively or was he also lying to himself?
There was a little column A, a little column B.
Definitely to himself as well.
Yeah, because he has kept saying it. So it is something he has previously known about himself. And has he now come to believe, oh, that's not 100% true anymore? But obviously it is still true about him because of how it ends.
He felt the heat coming around the corner.
Exactly. And it,
But then he told her, it's not that he told her the exact opposite, but he basically told her the opposite. So I'm just saying, so people will lie to other people sometimes. but they're doing it on purpose, right? They, in their mind, know what they're saying is a lie. Did he know what he was saying was a lie, or did he believe it himself in that moment, was what I was asking, basically.
I think it was a wishful thinking scenario. I think he was being really hopeful in what he said to her, because at that point he was so confident. He was like, yeah, I'm going to do it. I'm never going back. I'm going to get away with this shit. I think that because he was so confident in himself, he believed the thing that he was saying to her. And when it turned out to be not quite true, then he was like, abort, I'm going back on my old philosophies. Can I tell you guys the reason?
He had to do it because he would die, or go to jail, which would have been worse for him.
Yeah. And he was not going back.
But he didn't try to escape with her, though. He only escaped on his own. And he had done a few things.
Yeah.
Like, he went back for Chris. So it's not like he can't do that. You know what I mean? Like, put his ass on the line for someone else. It's just she, not her.
That part, too, was kind of the thing for me. The car's right there. I mean, I know you're trying to get away and everything, but you couldn't just hop in the car and go the opposite direction.
Maybe he was afraid of endangering her.
Yeah, I thought about that, too. So maybe because he really did care about her, but in order to save himself and protect her, he had to abandon her.
That's fair.
I mean, I was looking at that scene that if you looked at as he ran away, he was running through cops setting up barricades as an entire hotel of people going outside for a fire alarm. So, like, a vehicular escape was no longer an option without running people over being added to the charges. And maybe in his mind, he already felt like, if I get her out of this with me, the tools and the methods I have to use to do that, she won't want to be with me. She already almost walked away from me. I can't keep her and get away. It's one or the other. And he chose the thing that's kept him alive his whole life.
You guys, why I didn't care about their romance?
Sure.
Why is that,
Because it
Amanda?
had no reasoning behind it.
They show you nothing. They show you looking out over a starlit cityscape. And they show you them waking up together in the bed the next day, and he puts a glass of water out there. And me and my brain, the first thing that I think is, oh, how sweet. Yeah, that's so she can take her thyroid medicine when she wakes up in the middle of the night.
First thing I said was, why is it wrapped in a napkin?
Why is it wrapped in a napkin?
Yeah. What are you, in a hotel? What the hell?
Yeah, so that's basically all they give you. I think there's like another couple of conversations, but that's it. They spent so much time on all these other extraneous characters and this tiny plot and this tiny plot. They should have put more energy into that relationship, and that would have made that ending hit so much fucking harder.
But you saw what they were trying to do. It just didn't deliver.
This is a crime movie, not a romance movie.
Yeah, but it also put emphasis on that romance on purpose.
Yeah. And on Chris's, Ashley Judd and Val Kilmer's relationship.
I have to wonder a little if it was always meant to be. It's that kind of thing where you think you're in love, but you're actually lonely. You know what I mean? Because one of the times he specifically calls her, he's looking around at a table with the other guys and they have families or loved ones. And he's like, and then he calls her, right? Like, so it's sort of, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? It's not necessarily a bad thing to go, hey, you know, maybe I should open myself up to being with someone that I care about, right? Because you see other people doing it. However, if he also ends up leaving her that way, maybe it was the kind of thing where it's actually, you think you love someone, but you're really just lonely.
You need to be alone. You are too mentally unwell to be swirling someone down into your toilet hole.
Well, everyone in this movie is.
I was going to say, this dinner scene where they got together, it holds the honor of being the only scene in a movie with two female characters at the same time.
It doesn't even pass the Bechdel test.
Holds another very important piece of, not very important piece. Not only do they not have a conversation, there's one scene where there's two women. If you look through the movie, there's never, other than the mother-daughter, two women as the characters.
And I mean, this is one of those movies that kind of irritates me. It's sort of like The Godfather and its ilk, where women are hurdles to
overcome.
Yes, exactly. And I'm like, fucking leave her, dude. Do your own shit. Let her go.
I think particularly in Pacino's character, Hannah, that I just kept yelling at the screen a couple times, just get divorced. Like, just fucking get divorced. You hate each other.
But you know what?
What?
It's sort of reflected as well in his wife. Like, his wife is kind of guilty of it too. She's like, I
Yeah.
want you to be. They are both like, I want you to be something you're not. And I'm like, bitches, depart.
Yeah. It felt like watching two teenagers in a relationship because they are not emotionally mature or emotionally intelligent in any way. It was frustrating.
Like, I want you to get off my back. And she was like, I want you to be,
More communicative.
I won't say picture perfect, but yeah, she was like, I want you to be someone you're not.
Yeah.
And it was fucking stupid. But I
Yeah.
will say, going back to the whole, Bill, can you give it to us again? The whole heat line. What was it again? When you see the heat, what happens?
Don't let yourself get attached to anything you're not willing to walk out on in 30 seconds flat if you feel the heat around the corner.
Thank you. Pacino's character. I won't even ask y'all their names. He at one point did say, fuck it, I'm done. A little bit before the middle of the movie. And I really, really did appreciate how we saw Natalie Portman, a teeny tiny little baby Natalie Portman, that, oh my God, don't you just want to just like hold her and say, everything's okay, you're so, so cute.
Or she was a badass bitch.
Oh,
Well, I think this was after the movie where she was a badass bitch.
Are you talking about Leon?
Yeah, I think Leon was before this. She was even younger for Leon.
Yeah, she definitely was. She was like 12.
she was troubled. And I'm sorry, did I understand correctly that her dad was Robert De Niro, like her bio dad?
No, her stepdad was Al Pacino.
Yeah.
Her bio dad was so absent from filming. Every scene they had with him, it would be like, oh, he's not showing up to pick her up. Does he know what he's doing to this kid? So they never even filmed him or cast him.
He was an absentee.
He's non-existent,
basically. Yeah.
This was his third marriage. And I think
And her
second.
similar for her.
Yeah, he was her stepfather, basically. They got married after.
Yes, okay, we're all on the same page. Great. So that adds a layer of much needed emotional tension. Like, we've got the gunfire and we've got this bank robbing, but that added a layer of oh shit-ism to this. And I did appreciate how Pacino was the one that was like, nope, fuck it, I'm gonna walk away from the heat. And he was basically like, they didn't express this in the movie. This is totally me and my interpretation. To me, that sort of meant, like, I could go ape shit, but I'm choosing to not, because I have something that's worth something. And toward the end,
He still went a little ape shit in there.
I mean, he did, but
I was going to say, I have complete contradictory opinion to everything you're saying.
all I'm saying is that the stepdaughter slit her wrists in the bathtub of his motel room. I was confused about that.
They had established that his character keeps a hotel room.
Yeah. That was part of one of the fights that himself and his wife were having, was that he doesn't stay at home. It was almost a you're not here even when you're here kind of thing.
Yeah.
So he scooped her up out of that bathtub like lightning. And he said something to the effect of, not you. I can see death constantly, but not you. And not far before that, we did see him show up to a hotel room where, what was his name? Wade Rowe? Oh my God.
Wayne Rowe.
Yeah, had killed a young girl. And the mother shows up on the scene and she's distraught. And his face is so fucking intense, you guys. And he says nothing. He just grips her. He just bear hugs her. And then he does it again. And then he does it again. And that made that ending scene where he's like, not you, not today.
Mm-hmm.
Even though that was not his blood, I felt that. That was good. Bravo. I loved that part.
mean, I think they do a good job establishing that he does love his stepdaughter. And I wonder if maybe that's why they didn't get divorced is a part of it. But they just seem to hate each other.
But then he gets to the hospital and he's taking care of her. And so he didn't walk away from the heat, because the heat is referencing the feeling of like cops on you. you're being watched, you're being hunted, you got to get out before it's too late. He is the heat in this movie. So he's getting tired of putting on the heat. He thinks the guy's gotten away. I'm going to go home and just chill at my hotel by myself because me and my wife are getting a divorce. He's already in that mindset. And he finds his stepdaughter in distress, suicide attempt, and takes her to the hospital and gets the very first page he gets to the hospital. He's back on the chase. Doesn't even give it a second thought. And they had him and the wife have a little conversation where it's like, can we ever make it work?
Yeah, I was going to say, he does have a slight, yeah.
But he's still just like, yeah, I had this pointedly in my mind. They have this scene where the daughter's just attempted to commit suicide. They're sitting on the bench in the waiting room. They're talking. He gets the page. And they have this emotional talk about, can we ever make it work? And he's like, I don't know. I'm still going to be the guy I am. And she's like, go. Just let me know you're safe. Call here when you're done. And then he skips down the stairs like a happy little boy. Like, I get to go do my job.
That was the scene. They were going back and forth between Hannah and Macaulay, Pacino and De Niro, respectively. And it's like the both of them can just stop, right? They're sitting there where you're like, they are in positions both to just stop it, to make a reasonable choice, and they fucking don't. And I knew it because I said it to Billy. I was like, they could just both be reasonable men and it would be fine. The movie would actually have some poignancy in terms of like deciding what's important to you. And then I was like, but they're not gonna. This is an action movie. They're gonna have a big action pack and they're gonna go at it. And then we made a joke. I said, they're gonna kill each other at the same time. And Billy's like, yeah, the bullets are gonna ricochet and they actually kill themselves by accident. And we were fucking around.
This was a shonen anime, wasn't it? This really was a shonen anime.
No,
No.
it was written and directed by the same guy.
As shown in animes.
No. But I mean, it was. Do you ever get the feeling when a movie is written and directed by the same guy, like there needs to be an editor shoved in the middle?
Yes.
So it suffers from that.
We talked about this a little with Repo.
Yeah.
Although in that case, there was more than one person. But it's that kind of thing where you get an idea and you're like, this will be so cool. And it's like somebody needs to come by and be like, well, maybe this will flow a little better.
Maybe you shouldn't have all this in. Maybe you should have just some of this.
Some of it.
I don't think anyone did that.
Like the whole Wayne Grow being a serial killer plotline doesn't go anywhere and should have been cut. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
unnecessary.
You don't need it.
We didn't need him. Period. Dot. The end. Like,
Yeah.
I get that he stopped at the end because he was just so hell-bent on killing Wayne Grow. Am I saying that right?
Wayne Grow is the name.
Yes.
I would point out Wayne Grow is a very important character in what the movie does well.
But they could have wrapped him up into another character instead of making him an entirely separate character. Does that make sense? Like, him and Trejo probably could have been the same character.
Yeah, this shit was like One Piece with how many goddamn characters there were.
Or him and someone else.
One of the things that the movie does well is if it sets something up, it paid it off. And they set up at the beginning that this Wayne Grow character rode with their crew. They didn't like him, and they tried to kill him off. Wayne Grow survives and gets vengeance on him and ends up allying with another enemy of theirs.
Speaking of that, had him from his gun.
Yes.
And they had to wait for the cops to pass by and everything. But you are a professional at this. How can you let this guy escape?
Yeah, so easily.
Basil screamed at the screen when that happened. She was like, why was your foot not on him?
Right, or something.
I was like, why did you not have your foot on his face while you looked around? That is what you need to do. Why am I a better criminal?
But I mean, do you see what I'm saying? How they created a scene with Wayne Grow and showing him being betrayed by the group, and he kind of goes back
To
for
get his
vengeance.
Yes.
But what Basil said is true. There's no reason to put in the serial killer storyline in the middle. They could have just left that out.
Of course, the real reason they didn't kill him was because story.
Yeah, of course.
There you go. There you go. Thank you.
And I don't know, there was like a lot of stuff with the guy they screwed over at the beginning, the one that was financial guy.
Businessman.
Yeah, the one whose bearer bonds they stole in the very beginning.
The wimpy businessman.
Yes. Who? So Van Zant was the name.
Yes.
But he wasn't a businessman. He was the money launderer for the criminal organizations.
He's a businessman.
Yeah, that's still
Yeah, but
businessman.
he's like,
Not legit businessman.
he's in a position where he's like, you steal from me, I'm going to kill you because my reputation's on the line. That's what Van Zant's motivation was.
I just, like I'm saying, I think some of it could be streamlined out a little.
Oh, easily.
You know what I mean? There's a lot of fat here to cut out.
Yes.
A lot of the stuff going on with him is that.
This movie's like a nice big slice of mortadella. Full of
I
fatty
fucking
bits.
hate you.
No, it's a big fucking pork belly. And there are good gems in here. There really are.
No, because in a pork belly, the fat is good. Sorry.
That's not the focus.
I'm so sorry.
I did.
Basil.
I say that as a vegetarian too. Sorry, go ahead.
If I could add, Amanda, a focus on what I felt they did really well on the action scenes. They made them engaging. I felt more engaged in the action scenes here, even the quiet action scenes, like the mid-movie heist that they don't go off on. I felt more engaged in those than I would in a Marvel fight that drags on for 10 minutes too long.
I agree.
You, Bill. You too.
Hey, he actually likes Marvel.
Yeah, so there you go. But I do want to say I agree because I'm not a big action movie person, but it was neat to see the collaborative aspect. It's always neat to see the collaborative. I love seeing the sniper that's communicating with the guy down on the ground and he's like, shit, he's on your 6 or whatever. I love that kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's cool. I like that. There's multiple gears turning in multiple places and I like that better.
Yeah, I think part of the thing is that we have also, I think all of us, seen media like this where that kind of fat is trimmed off. Like,
Yeah.
I don't feel like Ocean's 11 is like has a ton of extraneous stuff, and I get to know all of the characters a little bit. Mostly there's one particular person, but still, this is a movie with quite a few characters and you have to keep track of them.
Finite numbers of characters.
Yeah.
I would say the same thing about Pulp Fiction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Almost as long as this movie, similar number of characters, but I really like Pulp Fiction.
Yeah.
And you know what? I do too, but I will never choose it for this podcast.
Well, we've all seen it, so.
Pulp Fiction doesn't try and put everybody in the same storyline in the end. They connect
That's
some
true.
of the strains, but not all of them.
That's the thing. Even though they don't technically connect, it doesn't feel like any, maybe not any. I think there's probably a couple things you could cut, but significantly less than you could from Heat. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You are having a good time watching it at least, right? And I think because this movie is really slow, and it's not.
Like how movies used to be made.
No, I like movies that are slow sometimes. We've talked a little bit about it in some of the other movies that we've watched that are
Alien.
older. Like, yeah, Alien has a lot of slow moments in it, right? But they feel necessary. And I think that's where I kind of am in Heat going like, do we need this? And then by the end, I'm like, no, we didn't. We didn't need that at all, actually.
It would have been better if it wasn't there.
Yeah.
This would have been shorter.
Because it would have been shorter.
That's part of it. But there is also a certain amount of information you have to keep track of. And it's not like I can't do that, right? But it does become harder the more information you give me. And
I can't do that. I literally had those two characters mixed up for like the first hour of the movie. I was
what,
so
the
confused.
main characters?
Yes, I was so confused. I thought Robert De Niro was the cop for a hot second.
It does seem like
And
it
then
should
Al
be
Pacino
switched,
was the
right?
bad guy.
It seems like it should be switched.
It's because Al Pacino's off screaming about all sorts of shit. He's a coke addict.
Yeah, and also if you've seen Scarface, would lead you to think that
Right?
Or Godfather. Or, I mean, I think technically they're both, but you know what I mean.
I missed the opportunity earlier. You were talking about Godfather. I just want to point out, I want it said somewhere that this was like a big claim to this movie's excitement was the first time these two were in a movie together in 20 years since Godfather
Well,
Part 2.
together in a scene, not
Yeah,
together
in
the
a
movie.
scene.
Yeah, because they're not together in any scenes in Godfather because they are from different generations in Godfather. It's just, there's a lot of stuff you can cut out. That's all.
Yeah, I can see that.
Also, why does Al Pacino chew gum so much? It's really annoying, actually.
So me watching that at 1.5 speed did also loan to the whole, this guy is coked out of his ass idea that I had in my brain because he was just like chomping that shit.
Hyper chewing.
Yeah, he was
That's
also
not
talking fast.
technically wrong. That was sort of an interpretation of the character,
It was like,
right? And I guess being on cocaine could also ruin your relationship, right? But
I got the feeling if they were on cocaine, they were doing cocaine together.
that sort of makes sense.
it seemed like very cocaine-y. I will give you guys another scene that gave me deep satisfaction. It's toward the end where De Niro and friends are robbing a bank. And okay, there's two things. Part A to this is he gets up on a desk and says, if anyone has these health conditions, feel free to lean against the wall. He was like, everybody get the fuck down, put your hands on your head, don't look at us. But if you have heart conditions, feel free to lean against the wall. And I was like, oh, thank you.
Right? He also assures them, hey, we're not stealing your money. If the bank's
The
insured,
bank's money.
you'll still get money. Yeah.
Your money is FDIC insured? Yes, I liked that.
Me too.
Yeah.
He's a criminal, not a monster.
Right?
Well, they kill a lot of people by accident, so.
Somebody in his crew picks up a little girl and uses her as a shield,
God.
which I was like, no, that's not cool.
And they showed that he's a dad.
Yeah. So
Tom Sizemore.
Yeah.
what does Pacino do? He fucking cocaine bears it.
He really does.
He is zeroed in. He is like Sniper in the Watchtower. And you can tell that you can see in his eyes. He's like, I could fuck this up. Great acting right there in that scene where he just like blanks the guy out. He is gone and the child is safe and he picks up the kid.
If I was that child's mother, I'd be like, how fucking dare you shoot near my child?
What if he turned at the wrong moment?
Yeah, that was an insane decision. In fact, that whole scene, I was kind of like, this is causing more damage by you guys chasing them over a non-violent robbery. What the fuck?
I said to Basil, what's the difference between the cops and the robbers? And the only difference is
Nothing.
Badge?
the cops say get down before firing indiscriminately.
Yeah, it was very, the lines
Horrible.
were so crossed. There is a lot of good to be said about this movie, but it takes too much effort.
I really enjoyed, to the point you were saying about the robbers in the bank when they're saying, like, we're not taking your money, we're taking the bank's money. After everything's going on, the newscasters are saying, a robbery gone wrong, which makes the implication that if they stole the money and got away, it was a robbery gone right by the news reporting agency's opinion.
Well, I think because of the violence that occurred afterwards, and so many people got shot is why they're saying gone wrong, versus if the robbery had succeeded, nobody would have gotten hurt. Again, why they should not have pursued them as hard as they fucking did and should have just tried to get them afterwards. I'm not a big fan of cops regardless, but I don't think that's kind of a thing they do anymore, if they ever did.
No, this is totally not in any way. As a matter of fact, the most realistic portrayal, I think, of cops that was shown in this movie was, them getting smacked around at some point by the main robbers.
So I don't know if anyone else knows this, but I pointed this out to Basil. They seem to weirdly edit out Danny Trejo. And I'm going to point it out and just say he's in the very first scene when they're robbing the armored car. And he gets some screen time on that. You see his face. But then he's not really at the diner when they're fencing in Waingro to kind of get him out. But like, you think he is. And then the big scene where they're talking to each other, deciding if they're still going to go through with the job. He's there in the wide cuts. But they zoom in on everybody's face for a one-on-one conversation with Robert De Niro about are they going to go through the job? And then he gets to like Danny Trejo and he's off camera. They don't cut to him. He off camera goes, I'm in. And then
Wow.
There's weird editing where I feel like they're just cutting him out. And I'm wondering if there's a story behind it.
Maybe they didn't want to pay him enough.
Yeah, like he was busy or some shit. He was like, I gotta go pick my kid up.
He was kind of new to acting around then, I believe, because
No. Danny Trejo has never been.
he had been a career criminal before that, I believe.
In 95, he might have been doing it for a little bit, but not a ton.
Yeah, let me see.
Danny Trejo has been around for time immemorial.
Oh, no, it
Yeah.
does say his film career started in 1985.
Yeah.
Says.
In 95, he already looked like the old man, though. I hate
Yeah.
saying that about him. He always looks like the old man.
No, sometimes you live a hard life and you look it, you know.
But he never.
Yep.
But he never aged beyond that, right?
Right.
It's like
Yeah,
he
yeah.
started
You see that
as an old
forever.
man. It's like he's a vampire that got bitten as an old man and remained an old. He was the worst case scenario vampire.
That it didn't de-age you, it just kept you the same age, exactly as you were, and you never change after that.
Pretty much, yeah.
He must be dyeing his hair at this point.
So did anyone else notice that with Danny Trejo's character? Did you oddly feel like, is he being cut out of a movie?
I do agree with you, and you did point out the scene to me, and I was like, oh, that is weird. And then I sort of tried to pay attention to it, and he's really not in the movie after the first job, right? And then you basically don't see him again until he is like, hey, the cops are on me, I can't be your driver.
But it wasn't the cops. It was
Yeah.
Wayne Grow.
And then his dying scene. And it's like, maybe that's why I'm like, maybe characters could just be sort of wrapped into each other, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm like, did we need all that? Did we need all that? It took up time.
Yeah. Not that I don't like Danny Trejo, and it's not like I think he shouldn't be there or he's a bad actor or whatever, but when writing the script and when putting everything together, you might consider taking two characters and putting them together. Because I've noticed a lot of times, and I think this is what a good adaptation actually does, is that when things are adapted, that will sometimes happen because a film has a very limited amount of time, right?
Not this one.
I get that. But almost no films, I would say at this point, no films come out that are over 3 hours, right? So the
It's rare.
longest you really have is 3 hours. And you have to make sure people put out with it, I suppose. But it means you have to cut things. And I think this movie would also be better for it because I'm mostly talking about books adapted into film or television. Well, television, you have a lot more time to explore things, but films specifically, because you have this limited amount of time, you can't always explore everything. And you shouldn't, right? Because that is what the medium is. And it feels like I realize the director is the writer, and maybe that's actually part of the problem, which you kind of mentioned before, Billy, where because of that, he's not willing to make these concessions because he's also in charge of the other part, right?
That's what it felt like.
Yeah. It felt like I didn't know he was the writer until you said it. But I'm saying that kind of makes sense in terms of not being willing to cut the fat, right?
Maybe we should make some cuts. You know what? No, we shouldn't.
Because it's all my decision.
When you're a writer and you decide to hit the publish button on your shit, it is because you have painstakingly, whether it's good or bad, it does not matter because it doesn't register in your mind. But you have read and reread this shit over and over. You have made other people read and reread this shit, and they have given you feedback on it. When you are the writer, you're like, every single word is my crisp, fresh,
This is my child.
beautiful baby. Yes.
Ask me to get rid of my children, would you?
Yeah, exactly. So I see that. You know, as someone who has posted a fucking 10,000 word fic on AO3, I get it. I've already cut out all of the bullshit that I think is not necessary. Now,
excuse me? Hang on.
What?
This is the first we're hearing of it, and I hope you link it for us.
Yeah, you just dropped some Amanda lore here. Amanda
Yeah.
lore.
I think I've mentioned this before. I'm positive I've mentioned this before.
I don't remember that.
You haven't put it in the Discord yet.
Nor will I. Yeah, look for it. But I get that. And yes, that is the reason why you need a second dude or third dude or whatever to step in and be like, take several seats, sit down, smoke a Havana honey, relax. Don't look at what I'm about to do to your shit, okay? And this movie just kind of like let this guy go wild.
You think he's like one of the reasons that editors became more important?
No.
Like editors are important,
always been
but they
important.
only became important because there became a reason to edit things. So there was a period where things were unedited.
When?
I don't think this was it.
No.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
They were editors in the days of reels.
Yeah.
Yeah, when they had to cut the film and splice
Right.
it.
Yeah.
So yeah, by 95, it had been happening for what,
Right.
80 years or something?
Yeah.
Okay, not a hill to die on.
So yeah, the Drews of the world cannot be discounted by any means. If it were up to me, I would talk about how they kissed at the cafe for 47 hours. They smooched it up real good.
For the listeners, they never kissed. It was just Amanda's interpretation of their conversation.
My favorite part of this movie is where Robert De Niro and Al Pacino went to a coffee shop together and kissed for 45 minutes.
That's her fan canon.
Yeah, it's her fan fiction she's writing. It's going to appear on AO3.
So yeah, and then we get Drew to come in and be like, no, this is fuckery. Stop it. Go sit down. Drink a beer. Chill out. And that's what needed to happen with this fellow. You know.
The new term for editor is Drew.
Right.
Yeah. So another selling point that I told you all about on this movie that doesn't really come through until you hear about it is that the firefight, the climax of the movie, the big firefight, is cited, used, and shown to Marines as a example of proper situational combat awareness in like a multi-pronged firefight. And there was a quote from a Vanity Fair interview with Val Kilmer where it says he had heard that when the moment his character reloads, Marine trainers tell recruits, if you can't change a clip as fast as this actor, get out of my army.
Holy shit. Hang on.
Yeah.
What fight are we talking about? Please clarify what scene in the movie are we talking about?
When they're coming out of the bank.
The bell.
Yeah.
Okay.
Coming out of the bank.
And they end up
the
in a big
robbers'
firefight.
combat awareness during the bank robbery is what they're talking about.
I'm going to have to rewatch that.
That seems weird to be like, this fictional thing is what you should
Done
aspire
well.
to.
You should respect it.
Yeah, but it's not just you should respect it. It's this is what you ought to do. This fictional thing. I don't know.
Emulate.
It just feels weird.
I get that it was fictional and that we were watching a movie, but if Val Kilmer really did it,
Yeah.
and he did it
Very
well,
quickly.
and
Yeah.
he's just some sort of goddamn reloading prodigy, then I would like to know that. I need to take another look at that particular scene. Wasn't his hair stupid?
Yes.
That scene, I guess they did a ton of military training for that specific scene. Like the people that went, like part of the film ethos of filming it was all the actors actually knew how to handle weapons and do the stuff because they went through like a 6-month training course and shooting, and they could really do that, shoot like a full magazine and reload it. And that's important to the authenticity of this film.
I did read something where it's very subtle. You have to be like really paying attention, but technically both the main characters, Hannah and Macaulay, have been in the Marines. One of them, Hannah, at some point says it just sort of like offhand, and then I guess Macaulay has a tattoo of the Marine symbol. So
Wow, I totally missed this.
oh, so did I just read somebody talking about it. But yeah, if either or both of them had, Marine type training, it would make sense in the film, right? Because they technically had been in the Marines, not currently, obviously.
Yeah, obviously they're not current. Although they always say once a Marine, always a Marine.
Even if you turn to doing crime.
Yeah.
Their crimes are not meant to be violent, if you notice.
Yeah, the crime when they were trying to break into that building at night, that was a victimless crime. They were just stealing precious metals from a company. So victimless. So petty.
Well, it's not 100%
I'm sorry.
victimless, but it is non-violent.
Yeah, that's the better word.
While I did appreciate the very, very ableness aware bank robbery, because I do have heart problems, and when he said that, if you have heart problems, feel free to lean against the wall, I was like, oh, thank you, I'm gonna lean against the wall. But how about the armored truck? I felt like they were being real mean.
Specifically, Wayne Grow,
Yeah.
who was doing it.
Yeah, and he was pissed off about that, right?
Right.
Yeah, and that's
Okay.
the guy that they immediately were trying to kill.
You see that shit coming out of their ears? They can't hear you.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. All right.
And he was the one that killed someone. And the reason the other two got
Yep.
killed, because now they're murder charges for them. So they killed the other two.
Gotcha. Okay.
Actually, the second one, I think, was reaching for a gun, and so they killed him. And then the last one, they were like, we've got 2 murders here.
Exactly. You can't do 2 and not do the third.
All downhill from there.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't leave evidence.
Or a witness. Yeah.
Okay, I understand now.
And the movie did a good job of explaining that. The very next scene, they had the cops analyzing the scene with Al Pacino as the homicide person and his crew of people explaining what was happening. And I think they just said, like, once they realized it was going to be a murder 1, there's no difference in jail time from a murder 1 to a murder 3. So they just capped them both
Got rid of the
immediately,
witnesses.
execution style.
Well, it's just the last guy. If it wasn't for Waingro, their ears got shot out, and I think one of them had a bloody nose. But I think that was also Waingro's fault. If it wasn't for him, if he was not doing that shit, they would have just gotten away, and nobody would be hurt, and those 3 men would still be alive.
And that would mean that Pacino's character wouldn't even be on the case.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, robbery homicide still would have been there for robbery.
Well, is he major crimes? Is that what division he was in?
I think the division they called him was robbery homicide. Like, that is the name of the division.
Huh. Weird.
That was my interpretation.
Arts and crafts.
I thought it was something where it's like he wouldn't normally, like whatever division he was on, or at least the way they kept saying it, because I'm pretty sure they just kept calling it homicide, and that I don't think he would have been a part of it if it weren't for... Maybe? I don't fucking know.
He was so intense. He was so goddamn intense, y'all. Wasn't
Al
he?
Pacino?
I liked it.
I did not.
That was intense.
Oh, he was like the freak of the week.
It was not Basil's tea.
I will say, I complained about it a few times, and then they got to the diner/coffee shop scene,
Kissing scene?
the kissing scene, and I was sort of like, now this is going to sound insane. I was like, this is better. And I don't mean because they're kissing. I mean, I appreciate his acting significantly more here because it is subtle. You know, it is someone where you can kind of see the things on their face and they're not just screaming out what they're thinking. You know what I mean?
He did calm down in there, didn't he? But before, when he was like tap, tap, tap on the car window, hey, want to get some coffee? And shaking. He wasn't really shaking, but it felt like he could have been.
Oh.
I loved that. I loved it.
Yeah. Another thing I want to talk about was Ashley Judd's character and how she ends up with Hank Azaria. And
kind of.
you don't see Hank Azaria's character. Like, the first time you see him, he just leaves the door. Second time you see him, it's the cops being like, we got you on this white collar crime, smuggling cigarettes, smuggling cigars across state lines. We don't really see much of him. And then the first scene we see him with Ashley Judd, he's a complete dickbag to her. He's just a complete and utter dickbag.
Yeah.
And what is his name? Lieutenant Drucker?
I think that's right.
Yeah, it's so nice. Basil said that she should date him.
And then I said, wait, no, he's a cop. Don't do that.
So Lieutenant Drucker is basically like, every time Hank Azaria opens his mouth, he's like, shut the fuck up. Like, go get her a drink. Get the fuck out of here. I loved him.
And he's like, she's been through a lot, dude. Like...
Yeah, he's been through some shit. And also, he was very, very handsome.
Yeah. But again, he was a cop, so don't do that. To be fair, if you are in a relationship with a cop, you are most likely going to go through some DV stuff. Unfortunately, it is statistically more likely for you to... Yeah.
Get out of there.
Stay away from them. Hank Azaria's character was the worst.
He was so Hollywood kind and so Hollywood handsome, though.
Yeah. Hold on. But then he was kind of real judgy. And I get it. It's his job, right? But about whether or not she's going to say anything about Chris, right? Like if she's going to tell on him at all or, you know, set him up at all. And he was actually quite pushy with that.
No. Basil, he had a point. He told her, you're both going to end up either dead or in prison, and this child is going to be a warden of the fucking state. And she heard that. And this is what...
How could they even prove she was an accessory?
Now that I don't know.
See, that's what I'm saying. He was doing that cops lying thing.
I just took his handsome word for it. He was so handsome.
God damn it.
Doing that cops lie thing.
Yeah, where it's like, well, you'll get in trouble. I mean, realistically, all she had to do was like be like, give me a lawyer.
Well, but she did.
Yeah, where are people asking for lawyers in this movie?
And not talking.
Nobody read their Miranda rights. This is bullshit.
Ooh, gotcha.
Damn.
Anyways, she outsquirreled him
Yeah.
big time.
Sort of.
Sort of, kind of, yeah.
Sort of, because he doesn't believe her initially.
But there's nothing he can do about it.
Yeah, because he had like a good fake ID and a good register for his car.
Yeah, which was clever. You were led to believe that Ashley Judd's going to get in trouble because she let him go. And
Yeah.
like in modern movies, it would be called you broke the rules of our deal or probation or whatever. But in this one, it was like, nope, he got away. So he's still out there. He got away.
He's the only one.
And she did too.
Yep.
Yeah.
She got away with it too.
As far as we know, but she's with Hank Azaria now, so that's not going so great.
Well, I doubt they stayed together. She was just in his house at the time.
So Lieutenant Drucker was stupid as fuck anyways to believe that she would go out there on the patio unobserved and not give him some kind of hand to the neck wave gesture like abort mission, like get out of here. Of course. I would have done that.
Even if he was out on there with her, I don't think he would have seen her because he'd have to have been on the same side as Chris was because she just did it against the railing.
Yeah, and if he was out there, Chris would have seen her.
Yeah.
That's why no one else was out there, because if there's anyone else out there, Chris would have seen them and been like, oh, the cops are there.
That's not true because you could like crouch down behind the balcony because the balcony wasn't clear.
You could have set up an intricacy of mirrors.
I don't know, dude. That's a lot.
Right.
In the scene in the hotel later in the movie where Robert De Niro goes after Waingro, the cops across the hall seem to have a security camera set up in place of the peephole. And I'm like, is that a thing they have? Do they have cameras that can replace the peephole? Is that like standard issue?
I mean, probably.
It is not.
I don't see why not. Like mini cameras look almost exactly like a peephole. So all you would have to do is take the peephole out and then put the camera in.
And we were saying earlier about like, we're better robbers than the robbers. We're better cops than the... How did they not prepare in a hotel for, what are we going to do, guys, if someone pulls the fire alarm? They were completely caught with their pants down. They had like no backup plan.
They both left the room is the problem. If one of them left the room to check or like radio to other people, that would be one thing. But they both left the room. Now there's nobody observing. What the fuck was that about?
Fucking Marriott.
Yeah, the person that had the most situational awareness was the concierge.
Billy had pointed out something that I had not initially noticed, but he mentioned, this movie kind of has a blue cast, like when you guys were talking about Blade. I don't think it's as extreme as Blade, but now I'm wondering, in the 90s, was that like the way to sort of say that something was kind of noir without it actually being black and white or something?
Explain.
So like when it wasn't through the whole movie like it was with Blade, but there's like a blue cast through a lot of the movie, as if there's a wash of blue over everything.
Do you remember in the movie Blade how all their night scenes looked blue?
There was a lot of scenes in this, not all of them, but a lot of them where it's blue. And like by noir, I mean like noir film, where it's like intriguey thriller-ish. Is that a way to sort of shorthand the black and white noir kind of films without being black and white, you know?
We might have to discuss this again if we look at another noir type film.
Set in the 90s specifically.
Yeah.
Because those were both in the 90s. Yeah, I'm going to have to start looking at that.
I just remember their use of helicopters. Is that just an LA thing because it's mostly flat and gridlock? But he was just like, have them change positions with me in some parking lot. Just getting out of a helicopter in a parking lot. Is that something that they would really do? That seems a little
I do that
crazy.
all the time. Yeah, no, I do that.
You do?
My personal helicopter.
Yeah. Come on, man.
Chap is yours, Peralta. Sorry.
If you were to have a police helicopter, would you use it like that?
I mean, like, it may be because it's LA. I don't think somewhere like around here, that would be a terrible idea. Because, well, actually, maybe it would be because Boston and a lot of the surrounding cities were not planned grid, like New York or LA are. And so maybe it would be better to take a copter because if you're driving, there's so many one ways, you cannot go down.
Yeah, it was like a downtown thing.
Yeah. I don't know.
Downtown.
But if they landed in a I don't know. We were sort of talking about this on the break, Billy and I, where I'm like, I'm pretty sure in LA in the 90s, the cops were fucking insane from what I recall hearing about.
Like never stop blowing up.
Not quite that, but like that they were like, crime was like pretty bad, but also the cops were like kind of fucking nuts. That's around the time of Rodney King too. Yeah.
No, there was riots. Yeah, there were the Rodney King riots. That was
Yeah.
a big deal when I was a kid.
Yeah.
But I think it was kind of a thing in LA at the time that a lot of the police force was kind of shitty.
It's on coke.
Yeah, things like that. It's funny, I made a reference to Brooklyn Nine-Nine a minute ago, but in Brooklyn Nine-Nine, there is a storyline about an author who wrote about cops in New York. And so it's all like gritty and they all do coke and whatever. And Jake is trying to impress him, but then he's like a nice person and not a cokehead. So he's having a really hard time. And they're also working on a cybercrime, which makes the guy keep calling him a hairbag. And yeah, it just reminds me of, yeah, cops suck, but they were pretty bad too for a long time.
Yeah.
But I want to tell you some of the crazy things I wrote because sometimes my notes are fucking nonsense. First one, where's this bitch's barrettes? Because Natalie
Bitches barrettes.
Oh, yeah.
Natalie Portman was yelling
Mhm.
about her barrettes. I was like, where is this bitch's barrettes? They're just 2 barrettes. Why can't she find them?
Doesn't want to miss her dad. She's gonna be late.
Let's see. I wrote, this lady's house looks like some rich people shit because it was. They even mention it later in the film.
Uh-huh.
What
It
other
was
dumb
her
shit
house
did I
she
write?
wanted a divorce from her previous marriage, too.
Yeah. Ooh, I wrote, I get excited every time I see Henry Rollins in a movie. Because I went, oh, it's Henry Rollins.
Henry.
Yeah, he was in this. He was the bodyguard to that accountant guy, the money
Oh,
laundering
goddamn.
accountant guy. Yeah, that was him. I wasn't sure at first because he does look a bit different these days. But then he turned around. I think he has I don't know for sure. Now I'm going to look it up. But I think he has a black flag tattoo on the back of his neck. And I think I saw it in the movie. Oh, he has it on his arm, but he has something on his neck. Yeah. No, he does. He does have a black flag symbol on his neck. Black Flag was the band that he was the frontman of.
I did not know that.
Way back in the damn day. I'm over here
Yes.
thinking about the Henry Rollins band.
Yeah, they're a hardcore
If
band.
anyone does not know, if our listener does not know about Henry Rollins, look up the song Liar. Very, very 90s angst song by the Henry Rollins band.
That's some commitment. I'm going to get a Yestalgia tattoo.
No.
Nostalgia.
Please don't. Y'all, I want an Audrey 2 tattoo so bad now.
That would be pretty nice. Yeah.
What was it?
An Audrey 2.
Tui.
Oh, yeah.
You guys have helped me rekindle my love. You guys and also my daughter, who has made me watch that movie a million times, have rekindled my passion. Anyways.
I never remember the name of the actor, but the guy that plays the fence, I remember him a lot
John
from...
Voight.
Yeah, John Voight. I remember him a lot from Mission Impossible as well, the original Mission Impossible, which Basil also, I think, hasn't seen.
I have not.
And he's another one of those actors that I only ever remember from roles where he's already old. And that's not a criticism. It's just like a discussion point about it.
Not Deliverance?
I don't remember Deliverance.
Deliverance is a pretty old movie. He was very attractive when he was young. He's also Angelina Jolie's dad.
Yeah. And he was in the first Tomb Raider movie as her character's dad, too.
All right, we're going to do our verdicts now.
Let's roll it up.
I'll go first. I actually do like this kind of movie. This one was actually not bad either. However, the downfall of this movie, and I like some long movies, but this one just seemed too long for what it was. Yeah, the characters, for all how many there were, the ones were really important, I thought were good. And the action scenes were good. But yeah, it's just too damn long. That's a nostalgia for me.
Did you say no?
Yes, nostalgia.
Ooh, that's a rare one for you.
No, I brought it out of him.
Do you want to go, Amanda?
Yeah, Drew said it for me. However, I'm going to go with Yestalgia because there were some parts of this movie that hit. I have ADHD, so it is extremely tough for me to watch a 2-hour-long movie, much less a nearly 3-hour-long movie. However, I did it for the purposes of this podcast, and I'm kind of glad that I did because there were moments of this movie that really, really fucking hit. The kissing at the cafe was
Oh my
just
God.
pristine.
You gotta stop calling it that.
So your nostalgia is based on something that doesn't exist.
No, I liked it. It had really good themes. It had a very good tie-in with the whole, when you see the heat around the corner, are you going to fucking bail on anything that you've ever wanted or loved in your life? That's my version of that line. So yeah, will not probably ever watch it again,
That's why I said nostalgia.
but I liked what I saw.
At the risk of being proven wrong, would you say any of the movies you have given a Yestalgia for, you would be like, I will watch this movie again?
Oh, yeah.
Girl,
Me, I
I
would watch
have
all
watched-
the movies I've given nostalgia.
I can't tell you how many
Yeah.
times I've watched Little Shop of Horrors.
Little shop.
Well, that's not 100% on you.
Well, I'm
But it
going to
also
share about
is, yeah.
80% of that blame. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, Little Shop of Horrors, fuck yeah!
You want to watch it
Here we
again?
go.
Hell yeah.
Yeah!
As for myself, I think it's a nostalgia, but it is a kind of softer one because I do think there is a good movie in there somewhere. But the problem too is that even with that good movie, it is really not to my taste. Even the movie that, while I think has good themes and is interesting, is not to my taste. So I don't know that I would ever really be all that into it to begin with. And yeah, it's so long. When Billy says, I yelled, oh my God, there's an hour left. I had my hands on my face, like head hanging low. Like, oh my God.
Gotta do that 1.5.
Because I was kind of like, guys, let's wrap this shit up. Yeah. So my final is soft nostalgia. And then
Actually,
Billy.
slight revision. Mine is a soft 2. And
Yeah.
to add more to it, like I said, I like Pulp Fiction, so I'm not averse to long movies. But this movie, I feel, had no right being this long.
Oh, you getting spicy about it.
There was some hand stomps there. No, right.
Yeah, I felt some hitting that desk. Billy, my love, would you like to?
Yeah. So I grew up. This is an action movie I loved. It was a movie from the 90s. I'm going to say a lot of words. There was a bunch of other movies I remember from the 90s. I put this in the same category as things like Good Will Hunting and Dead Poets Society, which I think is from like the late 80s. Just in a realm of movies that were at a slower pace than today and how you see a movie today. I'm reminded of that dumb quote from Harry Styles when Harry Styles was talking with Chris Pine. We're like, it's a movie, they make the movie like the movies. It reminds me of that line. Like, this is one of those movies that's like a movie. That's what this was to me. And rewatching it now with my brain rotted from TikTok, I'm going to go with the soft nostalgia, and mainly under the reasoning of I don't think if I were to recommend this to someone right now, that the pacing would be something they could get through and enjoy. I think it's a better movie for someone trying to remember the past than for someone trying to watch a new movie.
So we are on the same page.
I know, I surprised you with that.
I mean, I kind of got the feeling from talking to you after the movie that you might, but I couldn't tell. So
I'm very strongly proud of myself for not giving it a Yestalgia on the sole purpose of it being my movie, because that's not the point of this.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to just blindly love the movie you choose to do. So I'm sticking to, I've got some morals,
I mean, I've disliked several of the ones I've chosen.
Yeah,
so.
I gave my first one a nostalgia.
Yeah.
That's the whole purpose of this
Repo.
too, is to just present your shit. We're all honest here. We're all pals here. So let's take a look at some hot steaming vat of crap that I liked when I was 8. And
Not always.
not always.
I'll tell you where this movie really hits is when you're working a shift as a darkroom attendant at your local community college and you're sitting outside the room on your laptop waiting for kids to come to the door and be like, can you get us more chemicals?
You mean when you were like 21?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think this podcast is especially important because the world needs to know that it's okay to be wrong.
Or change your mind.
Or change your mind. Yes. Or complain. Complaining has merits too. We all have this stick up our asses that we're supposed to never complain. We're just supposed to stick to our guns, and it's all bullshit. And that's what I love about this podcast, and that is the reason that I continue to do this podcast, because I want people out there to know it's okay to say, here's the thing that I liked. It fucking sucks shit, don't it? Let's laugh.
Yeah. So I think that's it. We've done it all.
We did the thing.
We did the thing. And so thank you for listening. And we hope you join us again. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Have a good time.
Bye-bye.
Before we go, I'd like to remind our listeners to give us a like and comment if your app of choice has that. And also make sure to tell your friends. That helps us out greatly.
What did you think of my last album?
I loved it.
I bought it too. My gerbil uses it for a room divider.